It is another episode of the Juice on the Cuse podcast. Wes Cheng alongside Andrew Barth. Thanks as always for joining us on this Monday, October 21, 2024. And we've got Thursday night lights this week. Syracuse travels to Pittsburgh to take on their longtime rivals in the Panthers for a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. And Andrew, a couple really interesting statistics here before we get to Pitt 6-0 for the first time since we've been both alive. That was the 1982 season. Pitt starts 7-0 before finishing 9-3. And this is a team that was heading into the season with not a lot of buzz around it. And I'm not sure what the bigger surprise is in the ACC to date, whether that's
not at all.
That's Florida State imploding or whether that's Pitt's resurgence to the top of the conference. But either way, you have to be impressed with the way they played so far. Andrew, I know that you're one of the recruiting analysts on the Juice Online, but you're also a Pitt graduate. You know that team as well as anyone. So what's the biggest reason for it, especially after last year's disappointment?
It's definitely the offense. The defense has been great again, but under Narduzzi, you can usually expect a pretty good defense. Obviously, Eli Holstein is playing out of his mind. I don't think anyone was expecting that. I think people had high hopes for him, but not this level. I think he's still even top 6 in the country, even after last week's he didn't have a great outing, but, overall, the defense steps up when they have to. The offense steps up when they have to. A lot of speed, and the offense is a lot of fun.
So, Andrew, just looking at this team, I think a couple things jump out to me. I've been so impressed with Desmond Reed, running back transfer out of Western Carolina. He's been lights out so far with 182.6 all-purpose yards per game. That leads the ACC. Also, he has 3 100 rushing yard games and then 2 100-yard receiving games this season. That's the first time a Pitt back has ever done that in a single season. And, it is a Syracuse podcast. We're talking about really good quarterback play from Kyle McCord all season long. But Eli Holstein, he's been, I think, as impressive as possible as he could be for a redshirt freshman that was relatively unheralded. 13th in the nation at 283.3 yards per game, 15th in touchdown passes with 15. I think that speaks to me as a highly tuned offense. You mentioned it, 40.8 points per game. I wrote this stat down. So it is the highest points per game Pitt has had since they were the 2021 ACC champion. So that's the offense. Am I missing anything else on the offense? And we'll get to the defense after the break.
No, I would just say that it's probably just the speed of the receivers and Mumfield, Johnson, Bartholomew over the middle, Poppy Williams. There's just a ton of speed that you constantly have to deal with that, every single part of the offense is utilized. And, that's where it comes together nicely for once.
So in terms of the wide receivers that we should be looking out for, you mentioned a couple of those names, but talk to me about the specific names that are there. And, you mentioned speed, but what else do they bring to the table in terms of the scouting report?
So Bartholomew is somebody who, he's been great for, 4 years now. He's stuck through it all. And he has just been able to kind of, he's a tight end. So he's blocking for Desmond Reed. He's going out as an outlet pass on play actions. He's very, very, he's very necessary because this new offense kind of always requires a check down. So if he just roams and he gets open and he makes plays on the sidelines, Mumfield is a true wide receiver one. I think he will be in the NFL. I think he kind of has a similar trajectory to Bob Means, where maybe like a team would take a flyer on him or he would go to a training camp. I don't know if I'd say he's there yet, but he has the talent to do that. He was a transfer, I think, 2 years ago. You got Poppy Williams. He's a smaller wide receiver. He's also a West Carolina transfer. He's like Desmond Reed. He's just got blazing speed. You got to always watch for him in the slot and kind of just kind of take off. And then you got Kenny Johnson, who was he was all ACC last year as the kick returner. And he's been definitely playing well and, up to Eli's expectations because there's a lot of trust between them, and you could tell there's a very good connection. And then you got Day Reynolds too, who's the transfer from Florida. So very good receiving corps.
So we'll get to the defense after the break. This is a Juice on the Cuse podcast, and we'll talk to you on the other side. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup breakdown, even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB playoffs, NHL, NBA to political props. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get into the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Back on the Juice on the Cuse podcast, Wes Cheng alongside Andrew Barth. So Andrew, you gave us a really detailed scouting report of the offense, which has been high flying and putting up a lot of points all season. What's that Syracuse offense going to face on the other side of the field? Give me a preview of Pitt's defense.
So Pitt, per usual, under Narduzzi and Bates, they rush a lot. There's going to be a lot of pressure on McCord. The linebackers this year have been phenomenal. People really kind of doubted them, but you have Biles, you got Brandon George in the middle. You got just a lot of really good. You also have a pretty good defensive line. You know, you had a bunch of transfers that left Pitt, but Nate Matlock from Kansas State has been good. Fitzsimmons is back from injury and playing well. Nike Johnson, he's another local Pitt product out of the City League, Westinghouse High School. He's been playing really well. And then you have a couple really good freshmen. You got true freshmen, Sincere Edwards and Francis Brew, who, they've been playing great. And the defensive backs are, classic Narduzzi defensive backs. They play up on you. There's a lot of pressure. And there's a lot of pressure then on McMillan and McIntyre to make tackles in the middle of the field, which, for a safety can sometimes be difficult.
So I want to give my prediction for this game, and a couple things I wanted to point out here. The last time Syracuse won at Pitt was in the 2020, not even 2020, the 2001 season. So I was a freshman in college at that point. So it's been over 2 decades since Syracuse has won at Pitt. And despite last year's matchup at Yankee Stadium where Syracuse did win, Pitt's dominated this matchup. They won 18 of the past 22 matchups. And then throw in a Thursday night game, Syracuse has issues with stopping the run this season. I just don't know if I see a Syracuse win here. I do expect it to be competitive, but I think this game may come down to special teams. And one of the guys that we haven't talked about yet on Pitt, but we should, is Ben Sauls. He's made 12 consecutive field goals dating back to last year. And he was the talk of the town in the ACC when he hit that 58-yarder against Cal. Pitt goes on to win that game 17-15. So to me, that might be the difference. There are 3 phases of the game, and Pitt is solid in all 3 phases, and Syracuse is not. So I do see Pitt taking this game. Andrew, you got a prediction for us?
I think it's hard to predict against Pitt when they're 6-0. So I'll say 27-24 Pittsburgh. But I do think that if McCord can utilize, the blitz against Pitt, and he can really get Gadsden involved in the middle of the field, I think this game can, flip. I truly think it's going to be a really good game. But I think at the end of the day, with the way Pitt has played all year, night game, Narduzzi's always great at night. Fran Brown's kind of first ACC night game. There's a lot of kind of just factors that make me feel like Pitt's going to squeak this one out 27-24.
Yeah, I really think that Syracuse defense, again, they've struggled at times with the run all year. And I think when you match that defense up against the Desmond Reed, who's just, again, he's been spectacular, over 180 all-purpose yards per game. He's done it in the air. He's done it on the ground. It's just been such an effective weapon. Question for you, for the Syracuse fans watching, which is, if you haven't seen Eli Holstein, is he a mobile quarterback, or is he a guy that's going to sit back in the pocket and beat you? Because Syracuse has really had issues with mobile quarterbacks this season.
He's both. I mean, he's one of those. He can definitely take off. That's part of the offense. They run QB draws. It's not. They're gonna have to realistically keep a spy on him. But if you also let him sit back in the pocket, he can make those throws. I mean, at the end of the day, he was an Alabama commit for a reason. So he's no slouch in either department.
So I do see a pretty high offensive game. I think I'm actually going to predict 42-35 is my final score, and I'm going to give it to Pitt. But we'll have to see what happens, and Andrew will catch up after the game. Again, Thursday in Pittsburgh for a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. We'll see how that plays out. And that's it for us. For Andrew Barth, this is Wes Cheng. You've been listening to the Juice on the Cuse podcast here on the Believe in Rivals Networks, and we will see you next time.